everyone, this is Priya Vashne and I welcome you all to this channel. In this video, we are going to talk about Aristotle's theory of law. After this, we will complete everything related to Aristotle, which is relevant for the PSIR optional examination, right? So, this is kind of the last theory of Aristotle, which we are doing in this series. Okay, so as we all know that Aristotle is known as the father of political science. He is also known as the father of constitutionalism or the father of rule of law, right? Now, when I say rule of law, so what do I mean by it? Right? When I say rule of law, just a second. Okay. So when I say rule of law, what do I mean by it? This means that as the word is written, that there will be the rule of law, means law will rule, right? Which implies or which represents the that law is above everything, right? Law is above everything. Or we can also say when we say that law is above everything, or when we say that there is a rule of law, then it automatically implies certain limitations over executives, right? Because now we are actually binding even the executives with these laws, right? Means that no executive will have the power to do something which is against the law. Is it clear? So this implies that even the executives have to act in accordance with the rule of law, in accordance with the law. Is it clear? So this is what the concept of rule of law is. Now here is the famous statement given by the Aristotle in his theory of law, which is law is a reason without passion. Law is a reason without passion. Now, what does it mean? So, we will try to analyze this statement in this video, that what exactly Aristotle want us to understand by giving this statement that law is a reason without passion. Now, again, before going into any theory, right, before going into any theory of any philosopher, it is very, very important to understand the context of the theory. Why? Because it is the context which actually allows you to understand the philosopher better. Because everything which philosophers are saying, or everything which thinkers are saying, philosophers say better word is thinker. So whatever things the thinkers are saying, they are saying in certain context. And when I say that they are telling those things in certain context, it also implies that since they have been said in a certain context, therefore they may or may not apply to all the situations. Is it clear? Now, so again, coming back to the Aristotle's theory of law, so his context was this was written as a, or this theory was given as the criticism of Plato's theory of philosopher king. So, do you remember what was there in the theory of philosopher king? According to the Plato's theory of philosopher king, the philosopher or the philosopher king had the absolute powers, right? And even when we were studying this theory, we had also seen Aristotle, who was criticizing this theory. He was against the concept of absolute powers to the philosopher king, while he was in favor of the rule of law. Is it clear? So again, as I was saying that this theory was written, though Aristotle, as we all know, that Aristotle is being considered as the biggest disciple as well as the biggest critic of Plato. So he has actually tried to rectify the works of his master. So in this theory, he was trying to rectify the thoughts of Plato, where of the theory of his theory of philosopher king, where Plato has given the absolute powers to the philosopher king. So um, how or why Aristotle has rejected this view? So Aristotle considers the concept of this absolute powers to the philosopher king as utopia, which has inherent dangers. For example, when you give absolute powers to a single person, then they, as we have also seen in the theory of constitution, then there are very much possibilities to convert that monarchy into tyranny, and this is something which is actually not in the interest of the public or in the interest of the state itself. Is it clear? So he has rejected this theory completely. He has rejected this concept of absolute powers altogether. Is it clear to you? Okay. Now, let us now understand the Aristotle's justification for rule of law. Now, as you know that what is the concept of rule of law. So, let us now understand it how Aristotle is trying to justify this concept. Okay. So, sorry. So Aristotle has given different arguments, right? He has given different arguments regarding the benefits of the rule of law, and through those benefits, he is actually trying to prove that rule of law is the golden mean, or you can say it is the best possible form of best practicable form. Is it clear? So he first proves he first proves that rule of law and rule of reason is same. Now just imagine that he is very cautious, that he is trying to criticize his master, right? So he is actually trying to tell Plato that, see, you believe in the rule of reason. Why? Because philosopher was the embodiment of reasons. Therefore, Plato has actually tried to through the logic of reasons only, Plato has actually was able to institute the institution of philosopher king. So what Aristotle is saying is, see, my master, you are right. Rule of reason may be the best thing to do, but but he is also adding that please listen to me. Rule of law is also same as the rule of reason. Plus, it also has some additional benefits. See how beautifully Aristotle is trying to prove or place his point in front of Plato. So what Aristotle is saying is that, oh my master, you are very right that rule of reason is something which should prevail. But let me tell you that rule of law is also the same thing as rule of reason. Along with this, rule of law also has some additional benefits which this rule of reason does not have. So now first let us understand that what Aristotle is trying to imply by saying that rule of law and rule of reason is same. Then we will understand about the additional benefits that Aristotle is talking about. Is it clear? Okay. So now let us see how he is trying to prove this. He is saying that what is law? Now he is again going into the most basic thing, that what is law? What do you call as a law? As per Aristotle, a law is nothing but a byproduct, or you can say a product of reasons. Right? Aristotle is saying that law is nothing but a product of reasons. According to Aristotle, law is an outward manifestation of reason. Now, what does that mean by saying that outward manifestation of reason? See, when we had studied about the Plato's theory, then where were the reasons? we know that reason was in the soul, right? Every soul had three basic elements: reason, appetite, and courage. And the person who had the reason was called the philosopher king, etc., etc., right? Now, reason was in the soul, right? Reason was in the soul, but there was a problem, right? That we also encountered a problem that every soul or every person may or may not be able to listen to what exactly is correct and what exactly is wrong. So what he is trying to say is that when you put these reasons which are there in your soul into a book of law, you actually write those reasons into a book and that becomes a law. So that's why he's saying that a law is nothing but an outward manifestation of reason, right? And also he Aristotle also adds something that why we were talking about reasons, because the main concept of why we were going behind the reason was because the reason was something which was acting as a guide to tell us what is right and wrong. Similarly, when we actually you can say write all these reasons in a book, or you can say when we actually create a book of law, then this the role of this book of law is also the same. It is also acts as a guide to tell us what is right and what is wrong. This is how Aristotle proves that, oh my master, rule of law and rule of reason are same. They are not the different thing. Right? First of all, he was trying to convince Plato with this logic that please don't get angry. I am not against the rule of reason. I am not against your theory of philosopher king, but I am actually telling you a better version of this rule of reason by telling you some additional benefits as well. Now, what are those additional benefits which Plato is trying to, sorry, which Aristotle is trying to highlight? He says that law is a reason without passion, which means that a law is impersonal. See, when we talk about reasons, right, then what we were actually considering or imagining a person who, in whom soul reasons were dominating, and we were considering that this person, or we were actually showing our utmost belief in that person, that whatever that this person will say will actually do everything in the interest of the public. But Aristotle is saying, after all, this is also a person, and there is a possibility that this person may act out of his passions, right? But when I say law, then law is an impersonal thing. There is something which is written there. So whatever person is in front of him, in front of this book, every person has to follow this, and there is no here and there in this. Is it clear? So what Aristotle is saying, number one benefit which Aristotle is saying is that this law is an impersonal thing. Second benefit which Aristotle is saying is that law is a law is a collective wisdom of ages, right? ठीक है तो law represent the collective wisdom of ages. Why and how? See what Aristotle says is, we all know that Aristotle was conservative by nature, right? So what he wants to say is that generation on generation people came, right? They actually has accumulated all their wisdom in a certain book of law, or you can say that law is something which is not the which is not the product of an individual mind, right? It is a product of the collective. It is actually the collective wisdom of ages. Whereas if we talk about the philosopher king, our philosopher king, that this philosopher represents the wisdom of a person, of an individual. And and according to Aristotle, collective wisdom is always greater or important than the wisdom of an individual. Is it clear? Third benefit which Aristotle talks about is third benefit which Aristotle talks about is that it is true. See, again, as we had seen in almost every theory of Aristotle, whatever Aristotle suggests also has its cons, right? Similarly, in this theory as well, Aristotle accepts that it is true that rule of law has some limitations, right? Rule of law has some limitations. For example, a law may be rigid or a law may be silent in certain situations, right? But however, he says that this is the golden mean. This is the golden mean. Now, when I say that this is the golden mean, so what he wants to say is, he wants to say, Aristotle says is that since it is a golden mean, hence we should not sacrifice good for the sake of the bad. This is the famous line of Aristotle. So whenever if some question arises in the exam and you did not find anything and you're stuck there, and so these are 2 to 3 statements which you can write. For example, you can give his idea of golden mean. You can tell that one should not sacrifice good for the sake of the best, because best is you can say practically unachievable, etc. Right? So this is how Plato has given the benefits. So first benefit was it was impersonal. Second was law was the collective wisdom of ages. Third, what he says is that it is the golden mean, right? So though it may have its cons, though it may be silent on certain things, it may be rigid, but this is the golden mean. Even there is an interesting point in it now. Even Plato himself has accepted the limitations of his ideas, and hence Plato has changed his views in his book The Laws. So there is one book of Plato, The Laws. In that book, after listening to the criticism of Aristotle, that was actually the constructive criticism. So after listening to that, Plato was very humble to accept the imperfections in his theory, in his ideas, and hence he has actually accepted those limitations, and which you can find in his book The Laws. So this is all in his theory of law. So now we are at the end of the Aristotle part in this series. After this, we are going to start with Machiavelli. So thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for your support. And if you have liked this video, if you find this video informative, then please do like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye bye, and see you in the next video.